Hello, and on the gaming table today, we're taking a look at a Mini-Warmaster battle with monsters. You would have seen in a prior video that I talked about how monsters can be handled in Mini-Warmaster. So here's a battle that actually involves some, using the figures that I've got available, and we'll see how it plays out. So what I did here is I did Chaos versus Dark Elves, 2,000 points of Mini-Warmaster, and the Dark Elves will have a War Hydra, while Chaos will have a Chaos Spawn and some Dragon Ogres. Now, this is the Dark Elf list. You can see everything they have here. They have 10 for their break. And here's the Chaos list with the Dragon Ogres and the Spawn at the bottom. So just one Dragon Ogre here, that should be enough, and a break of 8. Now, here's the table setup and how things went. You can see there's 3 hills, 2 on the left, 1 on the right, quite a few forests there, a couple of little farmsteads, some fields, and so on and so on. Chaos is deployed at the bottom, Dark Elves at the top. And the Dark Elves put their Hydra in with one of their brigades of infantry. Similarly, the Dragon Ogre ended up in one of the Chaos brigades of infantry, and the Chaos Spawn in another brigade. So this is how we started out. Dark Elves took the first turn and generally moved forward. They were wanting to get their bolt throwers on the right-hand side here onto that small hill that they're just getting onto now, so that they could get some good shooting as well as claiming defended status. The Chaos Forces responded by sending their cavalry units on each side round onto the flank. So on the right, there are some Marauders and Chaos Knights, and on the left, there are some Hounds and Chaos Marauder Horsemen. In the middle, things didn't move too far. The Chaos Spawn Brigade actually failed an order and only got a half-pace move there. So this is how things were looking at the end of the first turn as the armies moved towards each other. On the Dark Elf second turn, they basically refused the flanks. They pulled their Dark Riders back, moved the War Hydra around to the left there, maybe thinking to get into those Knights and Cavalry there if they tried to whip around the building there with the Dark Elf infantry inside of it. The bolt throwers and things got up onto the hill. They managed to get some shooting at the Ogres on the hill opposite them, did manage to drive them back and put confusion on some Marauders. Down here, the War Hydra is lurking in wait. And over here, the Dragon Ogres looking eagerly on to get into those bolt throwers. Now, Chaos didn't rise to the bait here of going after the right-hand flank, as it is from their view here. They moved their horsemen back towards the center, and they tried to get everything further forward. The general on the left actually completely failed his order. He blundered. Not a blunder, but that means nothing can move for him to move the horsemen on the left flank there. So nothing moved there. One of the spells went off at the bolt throwers in the middle there, managed to give it some confusion. The Dark Elves then basically centralized their forces around that hill, trying to get a lot of shooting in and make a concentrated front on that kind of defended position there. Again, a little bit of shooting there into the Chaos Warriors, confused them, didn't hurt them too much, but did make them confused. Now, Chaos here made a sudden move to the left. Everything suddenly went left. Dragon Ogres and Hounds charged in on the very left side there. Chaos Spawn and some infantry charged into the right flank of the big unit of Dark Elves there. And basically this left the left flank, or the right side of this picture as you're looking at it, of the Dark Elves, pretty much isolated and facing nothing on that side of the field. So this was the big fight in the middle. And actually, if the Chaos units can take out 10 from here, there's 12 units here. If they can take out 10, then they win the game. Things started out pretty well. The Chaos Spawn and its supporting infantry managed to easily mince up 2 units of Dark Elves there. Couldn't move into the flank of these ones because they were facing towards the forest and away from the units. They weren't in line of sight, so they pulled back to this position here. Over here, the Dragon Ogres and the Hounds similarly minced up 2 units of Dark Elves, and then the Dragon Ogres went into the flank of the crossbowmen who were engaged with the Ogres. However, in that following fight, it ended up being a loss, and so the Dragon Ogre and the Ogres both got pushed back. The Dragon Ogre, with his 6 attacks, missed with everything. So that's what caused that one. In the follow-up there, the Dark Elves decided to charge or follow up into the Ogres and actually managed to kill them off, and then formed back into this position. It's the Dark Elf turn next, and so they can get an initiative charge in on that Dragon Ogre. So as things stand, 4 units down for the Dark Elves and only 1 down for Chaos. And this is how things stand. Again, those Dark Elf units on the right of the picture looking pretty lonely, fighting nothing there. The Dark Elves sent some initiative charges in here. They initiative charged into the Dragon Ogres on the right. In the center of the screen, they initiative charged into the flank of the Chaos Spawn, and then they sent some orders in to attack the isolated unit of Chaos Marauders, which is kind of in the top right of the picture, and at the same time withdrew their bolt throwers a little bit. Now down here, the Dragon Ogre fighting the 2 units of Dark Elves, and the Chaos Spawn being attacked in the flank here. Now, the spearmen that were fighting that isolated unit of Marauders killed it very, very quickly, and then they managed to advance into the unit of cavalry up at the back there. However, they'd already exhausted their 2 attacks, so they couldn't engage any further with it. Down here, the Dragon Ogre managed to hold off these Dark Elves. Combat was a draw, 1 wound each. And so when things fell back into position, the Dark Elves moved in this position mainly because they thought if we get initiative charged here and we can just get pushed back a bit, then the Dragon Ogres and Chaos Hounds can't pursue or advance into the bolt throwers. Over here, the first round of combat went in favor of the Dark Elves. 1 wound on the Spawn, none back at the Dark Elves. Pushed everything back a little bit. But then the second round was a draw. The Chaos Spawn caused 1 wound and the Dark Elves caused none, but they did have a supporting stand. So after a drawn combat, things fell back into these positions. The Dark Elves fell back first, and then Chaos got ready to charge them in the flank. So this is where things stand. Not such a good turn for the Dark Elves, only managing to get 1 unit of Marauders there, so it's 4/2. So in the next turn, Chaos put in some initiative charges. On the left, the Dragon Ogres and Hounds went into the Dark Elf Infantry, and in the center of the screen, at the top, the Chaos Spawn and Infantry went into the flank of the Dark Elves there. At the bottom right, you can see that the Dark Elves are still engaged with that Marauder Horseman. That's an ongoing combat. That combat there resulted in a draw, and both units had to fall back and ended up in these positions. Over here, the Chaos Spawn and Infantry managed to quickly deal with those Dark Elves and follow up into the Bolt Throwers. However, they couldn't get any more attacks in. Similarly, on the left side, the Dragon Ogres and Hounds minced up the infantry in front of them after 2 rounds and then managed to get into the Bolt Throwers as well. However, even though those Bolt Throwers are in a Chaos sandwich at the moment, that's the end of this turn. There's no more combat that can take place here. Everything's fought 2 rounds of combat. And so this is how things stand. The Dark Elves really in trouble here. If they lose those 2 Bolt Throwers, that's the game. Now, being down 8-2, the Dark Elves really have no hope of winning unless they can pull a miracle out of the bag this turn. And a miracle starts to happen. The General, who's just close enough to get things to work, manages to get 3 orders in on the Hydra, sent it into the Chaos Warriors in the middle of the screen. 2 orders on the Dark Riders also gets them in there. And then 2 orders on the Cold One Knights gets them into the cavalry at the top of the screen. Then all of the characters jump into units because that's the only way they're going to win. So these fights will be pivotal in deciding what happens here. Now, also up the top, the Dark Elf Infantry managed to get into the cavalry again with an initiative charge. It took them 2 rounds of combat, but they did eliminate that cavalry. That's 1 down. Now down here, the Hydra, the Dark Riders, and the attached General and Sorceress managed to take out the Chaos Warriors they were fighting there in 1 round of combat. 4 wounds is enough to take them down, and no wounds suffered back. And then the Marauders fell in the 2nd round of combat. They managed to put 2 wounds on the Dark Riders, but that wasn't enough to kill off the General who was attached to them, and so 2 more units down for Chaos. And that left it up to the Cold One Knights. The first round of combat, they managed to cause a couple of wounds to win the combat without eliminating anything. And then in the 2nd round, even though they took a couple of wounds, they managed to knock out 1 unit of Marauder Horsemen, and that brought Chaos to 6. So, in theory, that's a win to the Dark Elves. However, given that those Bolt Throwers there are about to die as the only unresolved combat this turn, I think it's fair to say that this one was pretty much a draw. So that's how things went with the monsters. It was kind of interesting. The Dragon Ogre didn't do so much on some of his attacks. On other things, he just minced everything in front of him, and he stood up to being front and flank charged by some infantry, so he proved to be pretty tough. Chaos Spawn, charging in from the front, it was good. Getting attacked in the flank, not so good, but it did manage to survive. And the War Hydra really only got into combat once, but it did manage to take out 2 units with a little bit of help from the Dark Rider and the General. So it seems like monsters, yeah, they work pretty well, kind of tough, hard to take down. They are a bit of a centerpiece of the army, but if you surround them, you can, get them into trouble. Hit them in the flanks, shoot them up a bit if you can, get them in the right sort of positions and you can still deal with them. All three of the monsters in this battle survived, but it could have gone a little bit differently. So anyway, I hope you found that kind of interesting. I'll be doing a little bit more Warmaster later on. I've got a couple of other projects to do right now. But anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again real soon.